Just humans. Hi. I don't know if this is how I couldn't get the thing to work, so this is what we're doing, okay? All right. I am alive. All right, perfect. So hopefully you can see me, hear me, all that good stuff somewhere. Let me wait 5 hours. There I am. Beautiful. But I couldn't figure out how to stream it through the event, so this is what we're getting. Anywho, I'm very excited to talk about this topic. I think it was a really good one, and in fact, I ended up turning it into a whole presentation. So thanks, Keisha. And so yeah, it was funny because I've known Keisha for years, like through online. And yesterday I had to message her awkwardly and be like, "How do you say your name?" because I wasn't quite sure how to say her name. There you are, Keisha. Hi. I'm so sorry, but it was funny. This is the thing with online relationships. You don't know people, right? I mean, you don't know how people's names are said because you're just like, well, this is what I'm reading and this is what I know based off my experience. And we hadn't even met in person. And that was the craziest thing. But I don't know about you, but when I meet people in person, I never actually use their name. Like, I'm not like, hi. Maybe I should use people's names. Then I wouldn't be an asshole and have to send messages with swirling keys in them to be like, is this how you say your name? Anyways, yeah, so I'm very excited. I've made a whole presentation on this topic, and I'm very excited because I like the opportunity to make content. So I want to say, first of all, actually, Keisha, I want to thank you for sharing, number one, that part of yourself, because binge behavior is one of those things that it thrives in secrecy. And it is something that a lot of people can hold embarrassment and shame about. And I know this firsthand from my own experience. And so one thing I've always appreciated about you is your willingness to share, because I think you know I think you do because you know it'll probably help somebody else. And so I want to thank you for sharing, because it most definitely will help other people, at the very least, to know that they're not alone. And so, yay, thanks. And now we have a presentation. So, yeah. Yeah, so I appreciate that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about binge behavior. So I don't know if I put a trigger warning in the description. Oh, yes, it's okay if you do cry. That happens a lot around me. Oh, I did put a trigger warning. So for anyone just joining, I'm going to be talking about binge eating, binge behavior, and it can be alarming for some people. So I do recommend that if this is something you do struggle with, you may want to seek therapy, like working with a therapist, even after this conversation. If you suspect, after hearing my personal experience with binge behavior, that you might have it as well, to seek counsel in the form of licensed therapy and psychologists and psychiatrists and all that good stuff. There's also eating disorder specialists out there and things like that that can help you through it. Okay, so that's why I want you to know. Good afternoon, Beth. Hello, hello. All right, so it is 1 minute till we get going here, and then I'm going to share my screen, of course, because that's what I do. So yeah, so I literally put this stupid presentation together in like just like a few minutes. No, I wouldn't say a few minutes. Like I literally scrambled to get it together because I was writing in my notebook. And I was like, oh, this would be so much better maybe with visuals for people, And then I was like, I have maximizers of strength. If you know me, I talk about strengths all the time. Maximizer doesn't just want to give you good. It wants to give you the best. And so I literally crammed a whole presentation in. I made a whole presentation in the last half hour. But it's okay because it basically was just summarizing what I already had written. So are we ready to see it? I'm not gonna present it fully like the way you would present something, because then I can't see this screen, which always drives me bonkers. So here we go. Let's go screen. Window. There we go. Okay, I know you can't see it yet. Don't worry. All right, there you go. So you're going to see my little tray at the bottom, but you're fine. Okay, so also as I'm going along, if you have any questions or you want to, add anything, dialogue in the chat, in the comments, absolutely go ahead. I find, again, while I'm going to be talking mostly about my own personal experience with binge eating or binge behavior, I know there's going to be a lot of people here as well. So feel free to share. Sharing is caring, and we can help support each other. Okay? All right, so let's get into it. So I called it consuming past fullness, and I didn't, because the thing is, it's very easy when we think of binge behavior to think of binge eating. And while that is one segment of it, binge behavior can show up in multiple forms. So first of all, the way that I'm going to be talking about binge behavior today is in the form of binge behavior being motivated by a scarcity mindset. So these are two almost polarizing ideals. Binging is all about consuming as much as possible, and scarcity is all about the fear of nothingness. And so I had this idea one day where I was like, I wonder if there's any studies been done, because there's obviously studies done on binging and purging and binge eating and scarcity mindset, but you rarely see it talked about together. And so I've been doing some studying over the last few years about scarcity, and not just scarcity mindset, but scarcity in general, and how it impacts us from a fear state, and how that can, work together as a trigger for binge behavior. So that's what we're going to talk about. Maybe it sounds exciting. It sounds exciting to me. I hope it sounds exciting to you. Okay. So basically what I'm going to walk you through is how I manage myself during a binge. And this is really important to understand, is that binge behavior is something that I've personally have dealt with for the last, well, how old am I? 38? Turning 38? Turning 39? I don't remember. I think I'm turning 39. Either way, binge behavior has been a coping mechanism that I have used my whole life, which means that in the last 2 to 3 years, I've really just been kind of working to work through it. And so it's going to take time. So I still experience binge behaviors, just the after effects are a little different than what they used to be. So I want to talk to you about how I handle it while I'm in the middle of a binge cycle. Then we're going to talk about how I implement what I call a personal self-care strategy after binging. This is really important because this is where a lot of the shame comes in, is right as we're coming out of a binge cycle, is where we turn on ourselves a little bit. We turn on our bodies, we turn on our minds, we fall into a depression, we just withdraw from society, and we play old narratives in our head that are entirely unhelpful. And if anything, will just continue to reinforce the binge purge kind of mentality. And so if we can create a better kind of soothing regime after a binge cycle, it's going to be less harmful to us in the long run. And so I think that's probably one of the areas I want to spend a lot of time on. And then we're going to talk about how I take steps to create a preventative self-care strategy. And preventative measures are really important because this is when, and it's not just for binge behavior, but just in general, the thing we forget, or maybe some of us don't even know, is that we are hardwired for negativity, for fear, for all that good stuff. That's low in our brains. That's deep in our subconscious. And so our default is to go to everything bad, essentially. And so we need to be daily working at bringing positive things into our life, filling up our cup, and so on. But we were never taught that. And so hopefully today I'll teach you some of the ways that I do it that will ultimately end up helping you. Yay, get excited. So before we begin, I don't know, there's not many people watching right now, but that's okay. Those of you that are watching, if you want to use the comment section and just kind of share with me kind of your own personal experience. If you find yourself in a binge cycle or you tend to binge a lot, what is the thing you binge on the most? Like, I know for me, food is an easy one for me to go to, but also shopping is a big one for me. Those are my probably the two highest for me. And for the longest time, and I did not realize it, was work. I definitely binged on work a lot. So for you, if you are somebody that knows already that you're like, oh yeah, I definitely struggle with binge behavior, feel free to comment what your specific thing is, because you're not alone. Okay, we all experience it. And regardless of what the thing is that you binge on or in or whatever, please know that it's completely normal. Like, it is a normal coping mechanism, and it helped us survive to this point. And I think that's the one thing we tend to forget about coping mechanisms, because it's very easy to see the negative side to them. Shopping, it's only been since COVID. Okay, that's interesting. That's a curious one. That's curious why it's been since COVID. That might mean that your fear centers are really high there. Sorry, I clicked off my presentation here. Hold on. Yeah, so the fear centers might be a bit high. Netflix makes it super easy to disassociate. Yep. The other thing too is, if you are somebody that has ADD or ADHD, seeking dopamine, of course, is something that we like to do, and we're looking for quick fixes. So it's very easy to want that. Especially COVID was a huge shot to our amygdalas, which is the fear center of our brain. We were living in chronic stress in addition to anxiety for fear of the future and all these things. So it makes sense why a lot of people fell into this. But here, I would be curious to know, and maybe with some of the questions that'll come up, I would be curious to know if you might have had a binge behavior before COVID, but it was more noticeable during COVID. Does that make sense? I think that maybe is it. No doubt I comfort you without thinking why. I do know that now. I also shop to try to find happiness, getting out of a relationship, losing weight. Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that's the thing, is we want to think about, the thing is, I think most people have had binge behavior in other ways prior to COVID or prior to the pandemic. I just don't think we were as aware of it because we masked it with other things. Overwork is celebrated, right? If we just keep working, we're hustling. I was busy was my moniker. Like, that was the thing that I held pride in. That was a binge behavior. Just one more photo to work on, binge behavior. Not enough money, binge behavior. So the thing was, like, all these things happened, but we were so busy before that I don't think we noticed it. But then the pandemic happened, and all of a sudden we were very aware of the way we spent our time, right? And a lot of the things we would have binged on in regular life before COVID, we were unable to do as easily because we were now, stuck in our homes with limited ways to binge. So just get curious about that. I would just encourage you to explore. All right, let's keep going. All right, so what is binge behavior? So it's important for us to know that binge behavior is basically when you consume something faster than normal. And this is really key. And for me, I never realized this. I always just was like, I'm just a fast eater. Ha ha ha. I grew up on a farm. I just learned how to eat fast. But that probably spurred my binge eating. There was always this this desire to eat while you're standing and then get out the door to go do the thing on the farm. There was always high stress and you were always eating on the go. And so you didn't know what time your meals would be at, because sometimes it wouldn't be till like 10 o'clock at night in the field. Sometimes it would be when we were further along. So we just had to eat to get back to work. Productivity trumped eating. And so as a child, if you think about that, as a child, that is like, food is sustenance, food is safety, food takes care of me. And then you don't have any consistency around that, you're going to think that you don't have food coming at a certain time. So when you do get food, you want to eat it all, right? And so that's kind of what happens. So you eat it super fast. What the hell just happened? Hold on. What is going on here? There we go. The other thing is it's consuming something until you are uncomfortable. And so this can be physically uncomfortable. Like we all know, eventually when we eat enough, our tums are let us know very quickly, or maybe not so quickly, but our bodies let us know how uncomfortable we feel. But this discomfort can also come when we shop too much, right? All of a sudden we're coming, and we're going to talk about when we start coming out of our binge. But we start to feel the shame settling in. We start to feel the stress and guilt and all that stuff. And that's uncomfortable too. It may not be like coming from a physiological standpoint. Well, it still kind of is, but it's not as much of a physiological standpoint. It's from more of an emotional or mental discomfort. All right. The other thing is feelings of tunnel vision and inability to focus on anything else. And this is, for me, this was definitely an eye-opening thing. Because when I started to we're going to talk about witnessing. When I started to witness my binges and when I would be in a binge, it literally was like all of a sudden these blinders were on me, like a horse with blinders on, and I couldn't see beyond the thing that either I had to buy it, I had to find it. I would think of, like, I would have a creative idea or see somebody wearing something, for example, and be like, I need that. And I would go down rabbit trails to try to find it. And you could not kick me out of focus. Like it was binging knowledge, binging books. It was binging specific items or specific food. And it's like, I literally can't think of anything until I do this thing. And then once your brain's like, oh, thank God, dopamine, then you start to kind of come out of the binge a little bit. But until that point, it's like nothing else fucking matters. And so for me, that's what it feels like. These may be a little different for you, but that is very common for people that experiencing binging. And then, of course, at the end of it, there are feelings of shame, guilt, and lack of self-worth. And the thing about that is that can also manifest from and turn into behaviors like that yellow jumpsuit that I wish I had. Yes, like stuff like that, where it literally is like all you can think about is like that thing. And it's like, if I get that thing, then I'll be happy. That's literally what your brain is telling you when that happens. And I've had to work through that a lot for myself. Being in Facebook groups and on social media, and we're going to talk about that, definitely doesn't help, because you see what people are getting and the responses that they're getting, or the way people are reacting to that. Or we think if I just have that thing, then I will also have the things associated with the thing. And so it's really important for us. And this is why it kind of gets exciting when we start to look at our actual binges. And that's the part I get excited about, because it's like trends and like spotting different things and things like that. But it's very important for us to just start paying attention. And so again, while these are signs of binge eating disorder, these apply to other areas of your life as well. And I think it's really important for me to note, because this is so common, regardless of a person's body size, they can experience binge behavior. Okay. They can experience binge and purge behavior. It doesn't matter what a person's size is. We cannot assume that somebody does not or does binge based on their size. Okay. I think this is really, really, really important for me just to note. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about scarcity. So we know what binge looks like. So let's talk about scarcity on the other side of it. So scarcity is being obsessed with and fearing the lack of something. And the word there is fear. We're fearing something not happening. It's feeling extremely anxious, almost like agitated about where the next something will come from, the next time I can work, the next time I will be able to eat, the next time I will ever have clothes again. And I'll talk about that in a second. The next something, it's like your brain literally is like, oh God, I don't think I will ever get this again. So we need to like just take it all in right now. And so there's this anxiety that comes with it. The fear of the unknown. And those of you that said that you noticed that your binge behavior was heightened during the pandemic. Well, the unknown was exactly what we were thrust into. None of us have been through a global pandemic before. We didn't know, when is it going to end? Are we going to die? Like, our brains literally could not fathom the uncertainty that we faced. It was an actual trauma, even though you personally maybe didn't end up in the hospital or get COVID or whatever. It was still a traumatic experience for your brain to be like, holy shit, I don't know what's going to happen next. And so when it does that, when all of a sudden we get access back, for example, I didn't travel for 2 years. My brain was like, are we ever going to travel again? So guess what happened? As soon as I started traveling again, I've booked myself ridiculously for travel over the next year, even though I was like, that's not what I actually want. What have I done? But that's because that was my default behavior. The other thing about scarcity is we're always seeing what could go wrong instead of what could go right. So when we're looking at the unknown, we're like, oh God, anything could happen, but it's probably going to be terrible. Remember how I mentioned early on that we are hardwired for negativity. So it's very easy for our brain to go to what is going to go wrong. What are we going to lose? What is going away? What is changing? Our brains hate change. And so we need to fight really hard to calm our fear centers down daily, to say like, listen, buddy, listen, it's okay. We got a roof over our heads. It's okay. We're still here. We're still alive. We're still present. Today's a new day. Blah, 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 blah. All right. And so the threat of scarcity is something that definitely impacts us as children, especially if our caretakers are constantly stressed or talking about their own fears around lack or scarcity. If that's a common dialogue between the ages of 0 to 14, chances are you have a deep subconscious fear of scarcity in your own life. So one of my favorite questions to ask just around scarcity, and I did not make that into a slide because I forgot, but one of the questions to ask around that is, what were my parents' relationships like with lack or abundance? Did they believe in unlimited possibilities and potential and money? And did they believe that things are always like it is our divine right to have an abundant life and or was like, I grew up on a farm that was always bankrupt. We didn't know if our lights would be kept on. We didn't know. And even though my parents did a really good job of hiding that from me, they were stressed the fuck out. And kids feel that stress. And so because of that, I developed this scarcity and the way my dad talked about money, like, oh, we'll never have enough money. We'll never have enough money. There's never enough. The food thing, there's never enough food. There's never enough this. And so now as an adult, guess what my beliefs have become? There's never enough. And so I like to consume it when I get it. And I noticed this for sure when it comes to clothes. Now that we have plus size clothes, and I was talking to my husband about this the other day, I was like, I wonder if I had always had access to clothes, like really cute, beautiful, fun clothes as a plus size person, if I would be spending as much money on clothing now. And I don't think I would. Like, I think it would be less exciting for me to hoard beautiful clothes, because there's a part of my brain that says this could go away, because it has actually happened in my lifetime. We used to have plus size stores here with cute clothes, and now there's only one store left. So it's very possible that it could go away. And so my brain's like, see, we were right. It confirms my fear around that scarcity. And so it makes me, when I go on Shein, I try to stay away from that site altogether now, but like Shein or Eloquii or whatever, it's like, oh, this might not be there again. The sense of urgency is really strong for people that binge. All right. So I just want you to start thinking about kind of like, what is your relationship and what has been your... That says, oh, when old. Yes, exactly. I didn't need one of everything, but it definitely had that. Yeah. Because you're like, I don't know if this is going to go away. And to be honest, what happened was they ended up putting a lot of that shit online. So when you see it in store, you're like, I better take this. Or thrift shopping. is a good example. When you see something finally that fits you, you're like, I need it, even though you don't need it, but your brain convinces that it will never happen again. So I want you to just start thinking, not just like, what is your relationship to scarcity, but also what were your caretakers' relationships to scarcity around money, around food, around anything. Really, like, what did they believe that they could just have anything and everything all the time? Did you come from a relatively well-off family where you didn't have to worry? Or was your family constantly worried or never feeling like there was enough? And just kind of like put that little nugget in your brain, okay? So that was just the beginning. That was like the intro. Now we're going to go through the objectives. Leave it to me. I'm a talker. Okay, so we're going to go through the stages, essentially. During a binge, what I do. After a binge, what I do. And then preventing a binge, and then wrapping it up from there. Before I get into that, do we have any questions about anything? For those that are just joining, just a reminder, we are talking about binge eating and binge behavior. So if that is triggering for you, then I recommend signing off and not watching at all. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to get into it. Here we go. So this is really important to note as well. This was supposed to be in the switch the slides, but essentially those of us that have been victims of diet culture had our binge and scarcity reinforced. Yay. We literally became active participants in our own restriction and scarcity. Diet culture and the constant restriction plus indulging has impacted our binge behavior that much more. If you are somebody that was never really involved in the dieting world, or you didn't have to diet, you still can experience binge behavior. Don't get me wrong. But those of us that really tried almost every diet in the book definitely doubled down on our binge behavior. Because we learn not to trust our bodies or ourselves. And what happens then is we go on autopilot, and it feels comfortable. This is the thing that you need to understand. Within our discomfort that we feel when we eat too much, buy too much, do the things and feel guilty and shame or whatever. Yes, we don't like feeling that way. Yet there's a familiar comfort or a familiarity that is comfortable for us because it allows us to stay stuck in a narrative that our brains think is safety. Does that make sense? And so it's really important for us to understand that there can be comfort in our discomfort. When our stomachs are very full and we literally are in physical pain, we are in discomfort, but yet it is comforting for our brain to say, look it, you're full. You don't have to worry about food running out. You're okay. And so there's this this comfort to that. And the diet industry has done a very good job of ripping us away from listening to our bodies in regards to that. Okay. So very important, but we become willing participants, which is where we get to now stand up and take responsibility and move forward. So during a binge, again, I'm going to be talking about how I experience it, but I want you to start thinking about for your own self, what it feels like for you. And so it's very important as well that this isn't just, I'm not going to be just talking about food, though food is, like I said, my number one, and then shopping is my number two. So it feels like tunnel vision. I already talked about that. I can't focus on anything else. I'm like, this is what I need to do, and this is what I will do, and then I'll do it, and then nothing else matters. I can't get food in my mouth fast enough. And I remember after I had, what did I do? I think it was when I came home from WPPI probably. And I was like tapped out. I talked a lot, taught a lot, met a lot of people. I had like zero anything left for emotional regulation. And I remember partway through a binge, I was like, oh my God, I've just been like shoving food in my mouth like all day. Like it wasn't never enough. I was full, but it was never enough. And so that's what it felt like. I can't stop thinking about the items that I need to buy. This is the wildest thing. When I go into a binge shop, like when I'm shopping and binge shopping, I don't even know what I buy. Like it becomes so important for me to buy, The 6-foot unicorn is a perfect example of this, which I talked about on my podcast today. The goddamn 6-foot unicorn that I bought. I could think about nothing else but this goddamn 6-foot unicorn. Right? Or yes, it's like a blackout state, literally. And here's the thing, that is like a very common stress response for people. This is what happens because your brain's like, all we need to focus on is safety right now. And so if we can tell ourselves or understand that when we are binging, it is our brain and our body trying to achieve a sense of safety. For some reason, our bodies and our brains feel unsafe for whatever reason. It may not be rooted in reality. Like when I came home from WPPI, I was safe. I was at home. My husband was here. He didn't leave me. Like I was in a relatively safe thing, but the feeling of having nothingness in my body is unsafe, or in my mind is unsafe for me. I have learned that to not have a creative idea, or to not have something to say, or to not have something to do is very uncomfortable. And so you should be afraid of that because we don't know what can happen in that discomfort. And so if we just eat, it'll calm that down a little bit for us. Okay, so that's the really important thing for us to understand. That tunnel vision is actually a stress response and trying to get you out of fear state. Okay. I can't focus on anything but desperately trying to get people in the door or fill up the calendar when I look ahead. Like, for example, I'm letting go of my studio this year. So I'm looking ahead at November and I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God. Like my brain is like freaking the fuck out because it's like, you don't have a plan. Nobody's coming. That means there's going to be no money. That's literally the soundtrack that my brain is playing. So I have to come in as a parent essentially and say like, listen, buddy, we're going to be okay. You've got all these things happening beforehand. And if you took a month off in November, I think that might actually be a good thing for you. So calm down. If you need to get a studio, you can rent a studio. Like I have to talk to that voice or else I will just give into that fear and that anxiety. I get a fast-paced heart rate. Like my heart starts beating really fast and then I'm like, and then that makes me uncomfortable. So then I just eat more. I get agitated. I was trying to figure out how to write it. It's like, I feel like itchy in my skin. Like I just want to crawl out of my skin. But if I eat enough food or buy enough things, then it calms that down a little bit for me. And then of course, hyperfocus, which I already talked about. So does anybody resonate with any of those? Or do you experience anything differently when you are in your own binge experience? What does it feel like for you? Feel free to use the chat because like I said, this is just how I feel, but you might feel different and how you feel might help somebody else feel less alone in their own feelings. Feel free to share in the chat. All right. I'm being mindful of your time. So, okay. So what do I do? So in the middle of my binge cycle, I started as I was working on my self-awareness whilst not in a binge cycle, I was able to start kind of watching myself exhibiting a behavior. Oh yes, Beth, the rage when somebody interrupts me in the middle of a binge. Yes, because it breaks the focus and it's like, fuck off. I just need to appease this really big anxiety in my head. Let me do it. Yeah, it's like legit. Like even when I'm writing, sometimes Ryan will come in and be like, he always knows when I'm writing, I guess. And I'll be like, I'm writing. Like I have no emotional regulation right now. Do not. And I get rage is a perfect example. So what I encourage people to do is just start witnessing. Let's see here. Somebody says, I get super agitated when someone interrupts my hyperfocus, and the hyperfocus, like Sims, is me trying to distract myself from binge eating. Okay. So you're trying to do something, another binge behavior in place of the other binge behavior. Yeah, that's so common. So common because here's the thing. Let's think about this again from a fear state, right? If all your brain is trying to do is get to safety, and like, let's say you're running away from a murderer. Okay. You're running and somebody stops you on the street and is like, hi, excuse me. I just need to get some directions. I need to go to Target. And you're like, I'm being fucking chased by a murderer. You need to worry right now. And they're like, no, but I just need you, can you just give me directions to target? No, because you're so focused, you're scared. Your brain is very scared in that moment. Yes. Exactly. So that's the thing you need to understand, is that it is fear that is driving this. Okay. So what we want to start to do is start witnessing the binge behaviors. And I started doing this about 3 years ago. And I really noticed it actually during the pandemic. And I may have done a live on it when I did it. So Jill and I it was the first time since being able to shoot during the pandemic. And I got Jill in the studio. And I just noticed I was like not even caring what I was shooting. I was just like spraying and praying everywhere with my camera. I was like, yeah, it's good. And it was like all of a sudden I could step outside myself and watch myself doing this really fast. Remember, binge behavior is about doing things faster than normal. Watching myself do this fast thing because I didn't know when I'd get to do it again. But being able to witness myself, the main thing here is that you're just watching. You're not trying to stop the behavior. You're not trying to redirect it. You literally are just like, let's just see what happens. It's like a curiosity more so. And that's where I started with it until I was able to get to a point where I could redirect it. So I encourage people, if you're able to, just witness, start paying attention to, let's just watch myself do this thing. Let's just see where this goes. Let's just see what's happening. It's a much more compassionate way. It kind of slows down the binge a little bit because you're being consciously aware of what's happening, but you're not stopping it. And when we stop it or somebody pushes us out of it, that comes with a lot of judgment. And judgment helps nobody move forward. And so compassion and curiosity is the key. So I want to encourage you just to start witnessing yourself. That's it. Just being like, let's see what this is about, All right. Then when I start to come out of the spiral, this is where you can start to feel like the blinders start to come off, light starts to flood back into your pupils, like the world starts to get bigger again, and you're starting to calm down physiologically. That means your brain has reached its dopamine. It feels safe again because whatever you've indulged in. So what happens is that I can finally start to feel the fullness now in my body. In the middle of a binge, I can't feel my fullness because I've turned off every receptor aside from eat. Everything is turned off. My fullness receptors are turned off. Like literally everything is turned off. But as soon as I'm coming out, that's when all the regular senses come back. So I can feel the tightness in my belly. I can see beyond my monitor. I can move myself away from my work. I will not yell at somebody if I have to do that. And it kind of feels like when your fever breaks, when you have a flu, when your fever breaks, that's what I call it, like my focus break is essentially what happens. And so that's when I can start to breathe again. I can start to the world slows down again. Nothing feels, there's not as much pressure to have to like get it. It's like letting pressure out. Oh, thank you. I think for me, it was just programmed from childhood. Oh, we're going to talk about that. Don't you worry. Get excited. We always will get into where did it come from? So that's the next part essentially. But before we get there, we want to start talking about, we need to have compassion for ourselves. It's so easy for us to fall into a shame spiral because that is predictable. Shame is essentially another self-harm tool. And I remember talking to Jill about this because she loves to hate herself. Essentially is the best way to say it. It's comfortable for her to dislike herself. And when we had that conversation, it surprised her. And I was like, because you have the tools, you could change it, but there's something that feels like safety to you to feel shame, to feel punishment. There's some safety in there for something. And that's up to you to figure out. But compassion is the thing that will allow us to, if we truly want to work through or experience less binge behavior, compassion is the only way forward. Shame is not the way forward, okay? So it's really important for us. So when I witness myself, so I see myself doing the thing and I let myself have my tantrum, essentially. That's what I imagine it. It literally is like parenting a toddler. If you have a toddler and you're like, there's no way this kid is coming back from this like meltdown, you don't intervene with them, but you are ready to scoop them up and tell them that they are safe when they come up for air. And that's the same thing we want to do for ourselves. Okay, that's the most gentle thing that you can do after you experience a binge behavior, even though every fiber in your being is going to pull you towards guilt, is going to pull you towards shame, is to pull you towards those things. Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. That is very common. It's like getting the dopamine is a high and the shame is the downer. And because the high is so high, the low is very low. And so it's really important for us to say, okay, if my toddler had a temper tantrum right now, what do they need from me? And ask yourself the same thing. And you know what? Naps are okay. Now you're going to see naps are actually okay. If that's the thing that's going to get you through it, then that's the thing that's going to get you through it. There's no shame in that at all. But we want to do it as a way, as an intentional way of self-care to say, this is what I need right now, as opposed to an act of avoidance, if that makes sense, ideally. Because avoidance is just shame in hiding. All right, so that kind of is how we're coming down from the binge. And then we get to the point where after. So all of the, the boxes are everywhere, your packages, your Amazon boxes and papers are everywhere. You've just opened up all your new stuff and you're like, yay! But then that high quickly fades because that's how our brains work, because we don't get used to things, or we get used to things really quickly. So here's what my after a binge used to feel like. I used to feel a lot of shame about myself. I used to beat myself up for how much I ate, how much I bought, what I spent money on, like that unicorn, the unicorn, like stuff like that. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, you're better than this. Like, I would say shit like that to myself. I would feel guilt. I would be like, oh my God, how could I have spent this much money on this thing when I, owe this much on a credit card? Or how could I eat all of my food and my husband's food at the same time? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I just took that away from him. Avoidance. I'm just not going to look at my bank statements. It doesn't, if I don't look at it, it doesn't matter. Or I'm just not going to look at my calendar. I don't need to know that I'm overbooked. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's not fine. Disappointment. That's a big one that I feel, I definitely felt a lot myself, was disappointment in my actions. And again, that feeds into shame. But the next one, the hiding and the lying, that was a big one for me. And noticing that, like, I still feel encouraged. Like, my brain still is like, oh, don't tell them this. Don't tell anyone that you lie about what you bought, or you're making up stories about what you ate or whatever. Like, your brain will try to protect you from that, because it also wants to protect you from feelings of humiliation. People might laugh at you if they know that you're an adult and you hide things. But the thing is, like, we've almost come to this place where we normalize it, especially for women, those socialized as women. And we see this, with like TikTok videos about how people hide the Amazon packages from their husbands or whatever. But in all honesty, hiding binge behavior is helping no one. Because you will have to face up to the consequences of it at some point, and lying about it is not going to make it any easier. If you can communicate with your partner what's happening, or your colleagues or whatever, if you can communicate with people, what your clients, what's going on, then you're more likely to get support, because ultimately that's what your brain is looking for, is actual support and safety and knowing that you're taken care of. And so even though every part of your being is going to encourage you to hide or lie, I want you to try your best to fight against that. Okay. It can turn into self-harm, getting mad at yourself. I remember I used to eat so much, I'd squish my stomach. Ow, that hurt my arm. I just self-harmed myself by accident. Ow. But I would squish my stomach so tight because I would be mad at my body. But here's the thing. My body wasn't the problem. And this is really important for us to do as well. One of the things I forgot to mention, or maybe I talk about it. Oh yeah, I do talk about it in the next slide. But we want to make sure that we are not blaming our bodies. Our bodies are trying to communicate to us. They're trying to keep us safe. That's all they're trying to do. All right. And the other thing that I would feel is that I'd feel that I'd have to promise restriction to justify that behavior. So for example, if I just ate a shit ton of food, I'd be like, well, you know what? I'm just not going to eat tomorrow. It'll be fine. Or if I just spent a lot of money, I'd be like, you know what? I'm never going to spend money again. You know, like it would be all or nothing. And so I'd have to justify that in my brain, which is not balance, by the way. All or nothing is not balance. But now, after having worked through it a lot daily and witnessing and having compassion and so on, now after a binge, this is what it feels like for me. It looks like compassion. It looks like curiosity. It looks like awareness, building more statistics or data to let me know why I'm doing the things I'm doing. It feels like soothing myself and communicating with my body. That's the part that I wanted to touch on. After I binge, specifically food, and my stomach's really distended and really sore, it would be very easy for me to fall into the narrative that, oh, I'm so fat, my body's disgusting, and no. That's shame, and that's helping no one. Instead, what I do is I look down at my body and I say, wow, body, thank you so much for letting me know that you've had enough to eat today. I said, thank you for telling me that you were anxious. Thank you for getting me through that binge. Thank you. And I actually practice gratitude for my body. And this is going to help improve that connection because it's in the preventative aspect. We need to know how our bodies respond. So that way, because that is what is triggering our binge behavior to begin with. So the next time you experience a binge, I want you to just pay attention. Again, witnessing. What are the words that I'm saying to myself? Is it rooted in these things? Shame, guilt, avoidance, disappointment, frustration, self-harm, promising restriction? And what is a way that I can shift it towards compassion or curiosity, awareness, soothing, and communication? All right. So if you want to take, I can also download these slides if people want for later. Yeah. Okay. So now what happens? So after I've kind of calmed down, instead of, like, I know you said you go nap, afterwards, I would just I would throw myself into more work. Usually it's a good distraction for me. That's what I would do, work more. Just throw myself into another binge behavior. Yay. And the thing is, that wasn't really helping me. That did not give me any clues. I did not stop to learn about what had just happened. Again, avoidance. Yay. So instead, I now ask myself and look for context. This is the curiosity piece. And this is really important if you can do this because it does a few different things. Looking for context of what created, started, triggered, or fueled the binge is going to, number one, bring your prefrontal cortex back online. And here we're going to take a quick little break for a little neurobiology stuff. So your amygdala is your fear center. Think of it like your gas pedal. Your prefrontal cortex is your rational or critical thinking part of your brain. Think of it like the brake. When you are in a binge, your gas pedal is pushed all the fucking way down. And because of that, we cannot put the brake on. Okay, so we have to let our car run out of gas, which is what happens when we come out of the binge. So what we need to do is bring our prefrontal cortex or the brake back online so that way it can start to re-regulate our emotions. So we can not fall into further shame gas pedal, but rather compassion, curiosity, you know, it's kind of like brake and gas and stuff like that. That is going to be the key to everything. So here are the questions that I ask myself that you may want to ask yourself after you experience a binge cycle. Number one, what month is it? This is really important, and this was really important for me to acknowledge. I noticed, like my father passed away in June, but he was diagnosed in March. From March to June, that is a very high stress. It's held in my body because I actually didn't process my dad's passing or like the trauma that I went through taking care of him for that time frame. And so my body automatically will go into a stress response, which fuels I'm more likely to fall into a binge behavior between the months of March and June. Also, the months of September, I definitely fall into a bit of a scarcity mindset, which fuels the binge. And that is because on the farm, September was always the time that the farming ramped up. We didn't know, are we going to get the crops off on time? Now we got to eat at random times during the day. You don't get a birthday. You're not being seen. You're not being heard, blah, 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 blah. And so that also, the month of September is usually when I will binge. For example, remember how I didn't have, we weren't able to travel, and I said that I booked a lot of travel. Guess who's basically gone for the entire month of September? This kid. What have I done? And that's usually what I'll follow that with is, what have I done? Because it's too late, you know? All right. What day is it? This is really important to look at because there might be certain dates in your life that were extremely traumatic for you. It may be leading up to that date. It might be a few days after that date, but surrounding these really traumatic experiences in your life, your body might be preparing to help you survive that thing again. So looking at these factual elements of the binge is going to help you actually start to recognize your patterns. And this is really cool when we start to do that. The third thing is, what type of binge did I indulge in this time? And this is really fascinating. I think it's fascinating. I notice that I will turn to food when I'm trying to ignore feelings of anger or like really extreme emotions that I've been taught to hide. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I turn to food when I'm bored because I used to do that a lot when I was a kid. When I'm insecure or feeling like I'm not being seen or heard, that's when I buy clothes and that's when I buy books. So I started to notice like, okay, what is the feeling that is prompting this? And I was able to associate certain types of elements with certain things because then I can look and say, okay, so if I'm feeling like I'm not being seen and heard and I always buy clothes, do I think that clothes are going to be the thing that gives me the validation that I'm looking for? It's like math, but like fun. So it's kind of fun when it's binge, but like it's kind of interesting when you can start to see the correlations between things and the default behaviors that we tend to go to. So that's why it's so important to ask these questions. But if we go into a shame spiral, we don't have time to ask these questions. We don't have time to explore. We can ask ourselves, what happened right before I binged? Did I have a bad day? Did a client cancel? Did I have a very emotional client come in? Was my kid being a little shit? Like, what happened? What happened the day before? What happened the week before? Have I just been feeling really heavy or like I'm not enough or like I'm worried about the state of my business and so I need to consume, right? What has been my general disposition for the last few weeks? And so by disposition, I mean like what has your mood been? What has been your general mood? Have you been content? Have you been floundering? Have you been feeling less than? Have you been worried or anxious or whatever? What has been the general average state that your mind has been in? Because that tends to fuel certain behaviors. And then this last question is really important. In addition to binging, have I indulged in any other coping methods? So this could look like seeking certain types of relationships. If you're not feeling seen or heard, you may seek being seen or heard by people that give you false validation, right? You may spend more time online. If you feel inadequate compared to other people, you may binge social media. If you feel really angry, you may be harming yourself in other ways. You may be restricting your food. You may be over exercising. You may be doing lots of different things to try to control whatever that is. And usually when we try to control ourselves, it usually is another coping method, more so than something that is helping us. Okay, so essentially this is the point. We just want to start the process of discovery. So here are the ways that we get into discovery. So the first thing I asked myself is, I discovered what am I binging on? I binge on food, overbooking my calendar, buying lots of clothes, buying lots of books, and consuming social media. Those are my main sources of consumption. Food is number one. Overwork is number two. Buying lots of clothes, buying books, and social media. And so what can happen though? You might find yourself, I just overate over here. So now I need to offset the shame I feel and feel less shameful, which means I need more dopamine. And so you go on social media hoping to get that high of dopamine. So you binge over here, and then you like peter out on that, and you feel bad now. I'm not working hard enough because my value is tied to my productivity. Throw that away. Now I'm just going to work. And so you kind of like binge hop from thing to thing because you're never getting a full lasting dose of dopamine, because that's not how that works. And so we can jump around from thing to thing, trying to keep ourselves content. And so it's really important for us to acknowledge what's happening. The next thing I started to ask myself is, when is this happening? I noticed I binged the most after I finish a big project. So, for example, when I would create a workshop, when I wrote my book, when I teach the Empowerment for Everybody 12-week workshop, when I do body image boot camp, when I taught at WPPI, whatever the thing is, whenever I build something and just like put everything out of my head out into the world, I feel very empty afterwards. And I get very uncomfortable in this restful, empty period, because I've been taught, I think we talked about that in a minute. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute, so never mind. Coming home from a workshop, seeing an empty calendar, I definitely know when I look ahead at my calendar, I'm like, then I have to calm that part of my brain down. Not being seen or heard as a middle child and the good kid, the good girl. I was always the kid that was, just hanging out there. And so even though I am terrified of it, I also secretly desire it. I want to be seen and heard. Boredom. For sure, I binge when I'm bored because I'm not being productive enough. So I might as well fill my time with something else, which is food. And then this big one, and it took me a long time to acknowledge this. I just thought I avoided anger. That's not how anger works. It's not how emotions work. You don't avoid them. They still happen. But I realized that if my mouth was full of food, I couldn't scream out loud. Right? I couldn't yell at people. I couldn't be angry. I couldn't hit people if I'm buying stuff. Like I can't be mean or mad or angry if I'm consuming. And that was a really big eye opener for me. And it really came to light earlier this week or last week when I was in Coco Rocha's modeling thing. And she's like, hey, act angry or whatever. And best binge ever. And she was like, okay, act angry. And I'm like, I don't actually know what anger for me feels like or looks like, because I didn't think I was allowed to do it. And so I don't actually, and the only time I can think about how I channeled it in probably a healthy way was when I was in martial arts and I finally got to punch somebody for the first time and it was celebrated. But I've never, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to be angry and be okay with that. And so that's something I'm working on right now. Unseen is a big catalyst. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one actually. And unseen is interesting. And that goes hand in hand actually with weight and things like that. But that's a whole other topic. So we're not going to get into today, but that could be a whole nother thing for me to talk about for you. I'm like, where's my slideshow? Hold on. I keep losing things here. Okay. So that's when are you doing it? So you want to take stock of, okay, what am I noticing? What is but you can't do that if you don't ask the context around the when, right? Like you can't ask the context around the binge if you fall into shame. So you need to keep that prefrontal cortex online to say, like, let's just take a look and see what happened. Why? Here is the thing. Everything is based in fear, okay? So this is really important for you to understand. If you've taken my Empowerment for Everybody course, or Body Image Bootcamp, I make you go down the train of what are you most afraid of, but essentially your subconscious is afraid of death. But for me, my fears are rooted in, I fear not having another creative idea. So once I put out my book, once I put out my course, once I put out whatever, my scarcity mentality of this might not happen again, feeds into this and makes me feel uncomfortable within this emptiness. Okay, so it's really important for us to recognize that discomfort is basically me saying, like, oh my God, the scarcity mindset saying, like, oh my God, are we ever going to have another idea? Like, what if we don't? Oh my God, you're going to die. Right? I fear not being relevant. This is a huge one. And interestingly enough, Brene Brown sent out a newsletter today saying that she's taking 14 weeks off social media. And I've been toying with getting off social media just for a month. I just want to do it for a month to see what happens. But I'm so afraid because I fear not being relevant. And so whenever I have these feelings of insecurity or seeing other people doing better than me as if it's a competition or things like that, I will usually buy things that I don't need. Because I think if I have those things, then I'll be good enough, right? Then I'll be relevant. Then people will like me, right? I fear being unseen or unheard. Like I said, as a child, all I wanted was, and I did a meditation this morning, and that was a big thing that came up for it, is all I wanted was for somebody to say, hey, you don't have to carry this alone. Hey, you can cry. I remember one time when I was younger, but still quite large, I was a large kid. And this memory came out to me just like a few weeks ago while I was meditating. And my brother was annoying the shit out of me, and I was crying and I was upset. And my mom was like, what's going on? And so I ran up to her, and her fear response set in, and she slapped me. And so as a young child, like, she was just like, you just came out of nowhere, and like, it scared me. And so I slapped you, and I apologize. But to like 13 or 8, I don't know how old I was, like 10 or 13-year-old Terry, that told me the one time I ran to get help for something that I didn't want happening to me, I got hurt for it. So since that day, I do not think I can go to anybody else. I feel like nobody wants to be bothered with what I have to say. Nobody wants to be bothered with problems that I have. And so when I feel that I have a problem, or I feel like I want people to see that, I would rather, I'm just going to eat or shop or do something else to distract from that. And how, interestingly enough, how this also manifested for me different than just binging was that up until like 2 years ago, I would partner for all my workshops. While I wanted to be seen and do workshops because educating is like amazing for me, I felt that I couldn't do it on my own. I felt that I needed somebody else there. I didn't think I was valuable enough as I was. Wild, right? All right, I fear my stronger emotions, which I talked about, the anger, the sadness, the things that we've been taught are bad. Again, if I feel those, I'm weak. I grew up in a farm where, like, I'll give you something to cry about, like that kind of attitude. I'm not allowed to feel things. Feelings, anger is inconvenient. Like, that is literally what I think of that emotion, is it's inconvenient. And so how do I get rid of it? I'm just going to overload myself with dopamine and hope I never feel it again. But again, that doesn't make it go away, because I'm still going to feel angry down the line. I'm still going to be mad down the line. And all I've done is teach myself how to cope through it with food, shopping, or overwork. Not super great, right? I fear being a failure. Right? This is why when I see my calendar being empty, I fear that I'm going to be a failure and they will have been right, that I am not successful in their eyes, whoever they are. I don't even know. Right? That, oh, the people that told me I couldn't do it, shouldn't do it, wouldn't do it, will be right. So to avoid that, I'm going to run a bunch of mini sessions that I don't fucking want to run. I'm going to book up my calendar with people I don't actually want to photograph. I'm going to book a lot of trips that sound exciting, but actually are incredibly exhausting, so that I can make it work. Right? I'm going to stay doing the same thing day in and day out because it's bringing me money. Let's see. Can I ask what you feel when you throw what you are wearing up and do that head back pose you always do? Oh, what? We'll come back to that later. I fear being unproductive or lazy. This is a big one. And I know there's a lot of people in this group that also tie their value to their productivity, right? Very important. I want to encourage you to see if you can come up with a mantra or think of a way to help yourself understand that your economical value is separate from your human value. These are two very different experiences. And this is something that I still have to fight myself on. I still hear that voice, but I fear being called lazy or told that I'm not working hard enough or whatever it is. Because again, growing up on a farm, hard work and being a hard worker was celebrated and appreciated. And I'm sure I was called lazy at some point in my life and I didn't like it. Beth. I know. This is pretty much everybody probably in this Facebook group, to be honest. But this is why, like, one of the things we talk about ad nauseum in the Empowerment for Everybody course. Stop it. But the thing is that the point of that is that everything that drives my binge behavior is me being afraid that I will be alone, abandoned, which means I'll be alone, and then I'll die. Essentially is what our brain comes down to. And so therefore, understanding the fear that is driving it, I can now come in and say, how do I want to handle this? And the important thing to understand is it's all just information. Asking these questions is just information. And why I like to say it that way is sometimes giving into the binge is the thing that you need the most in that moment, then it's okay. But at least you kind of consciously made that decision instead of letting it choose to run you. Does that make sense? All right, so let's just kind of finish up here. We're going to talk about preventing a binge. So this is in between your binge cycles, things that you can do or staving them off, coming up with a preventative self-care strategy, so to speak. All right, so the first thing I want to encourage you to do is make a list of cup fillers. And what I mean by a cup filler is things that add to your life and make you feel the most authentic to yourself. And there's no right or wrong list to have. It can be anything and everything. Some of you, like Beth, I know you have your pupper and you love to hang out with your pup. It might be hanging out with people that might give you energy, whatever the thing is. And so I've included a few of mine. And the important thing here is that these are things that are going to give you dopamine, but in a much more slower but aligned way. So it's not a coping mechanism. It's more of a, I'm taking care of myself, right? Self-care. So some of mine include being in nature. Like even today, I just have my window open. It's rainy outside. So listening to the rain, talking to my plants. I'm pointing to them. You can't see them, but there's plants, talking to them, hanging out with certain people. This is very important. Not all people. There's only certain people I can hang out with, to fill up my cup. And they are very minimal. And yes, meditation is something that I've recently fallen back in love with. And I do guided meditations through the 2B Magnetic School, which has been life-changing for me. Napping is huge. But it's like a chosen nap. It's like, I know when I'm come out of this nap, I'm going to feel really good afterwards. Reading. I love reading, but I never make time for it. So now I know to make time for it. movement, self-portraits, art, journaling, also getting off social media. But I want to look at things we want to add, not things to take away. So what are some of the things that you do that like kind of bring you joy and make you feel good and all those kinds of things? Make your list and write it out. This is really important that you write it out, because if you don't write it out, you're going to forget it. If you write it out somewhere, you can literally make a nice thing in Canva, or you can like make it in your journal, or put it out and put it on your fridge. So that way, if you're in the middle of a binge, you can see it and say, oh, what is one of these other activities I could do? I know logically my brain is looking for dopamine right now. What is one of these things that I could do or would feel good right now to do to help me out of whatever I'm feeling right now? Okay. Does that make sense? One of the other things is, and I don't think I talk about it in here, is coming up with mantras. And I know some people call them affirmations, but I like the word mantra more because it's something you just repeat over and over and over and over again to yourself to get you through something. And mine are very simple. I'm safe, I'm supported, I'm loved, I'm confident. I'm safe, I'm supported, I'm loved, I'm confident. And I will choose maybe one or two of those depending on the situation. But saying I'm safe and supported, holding my hand to my heart and getting out for a walk fixes it every time. Every time it brings everything down in my body. What I'm doing in that moment is I'm parenting the fear center of my brain. I find comfort in finding new recipes and making them. Yes, it's odd to use food to help out a binging. So the interesting thing about that with recipes and baking is that actually is helping you keep your prefrontal cortex online. Because you have to measure, you have to be specific especially with baking. You have to like think about things. So you're using the rational part of your brain, which is breaking the speed demon of a gas pedal of your fear center. So it's helping you do that. Does that make sense? Which is great. So anything like that, same with yoga, painting, design, sound, subjects. It literally can be playing Tetris is a good one. If you are somebody that overthinks a lot or is like an overthinker, Tetris is a really great way to get your prefrontal cortex back online. Playing Boggle is a good one. It's not really about the food. Yeah. No, it's never about anything. Yeah. It's always just about fear, actually. All right, so the second thing you can do is start to build your self-awareness. And this is really important, but it does take time, so you need to have patience. Become aware of the physiological signs that precede your binge behavior, whether it's buying things online, whether it's overbooking your calendar, whether it is going, eating, whatever. So right now, close your eyes for a hot second, if you can. If you close your eyes, I want you to just think about the last time you binged on something, whatever it was. Okay, so just kind of put yourself back into that place of that binge. What does your body feel like right now? Where are you feeling feelings in your body? And you don't have to write it, but you can if you want. It just helps other people. Where are you feeling it in your body? You can open your eyes to type if you need to. Na, 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 na. So normally for a lot of people, again, it's your usual stress response. What you're feeling right now, thinking, putting yourself back into that binge, is literally what you will feel the next time you go into a binge. You are doing it, you're just not able to be conscious that you're doing it because you're going into it. Heavy breathing, tingling in my face, belly on the right. Yeah, I get it right in my solar plexus, like right here. I get hot usually. These are your stress response, right? This is your body preparing. Okay, so now to get you out of that for a hot second, close your eyes. And I want you to picture the most calming experience you've ever had in your life. Picture every detail, whatever it is. Maybe you were at the beach. Maybe your children were laughing. Maybe you were sitting outside with the sun on your skin. Maybe you were with a lover. Just picture every detail, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feeling. How does that feel? What do you feel now in your body when you imagine that picture? Feel free to respond in the comments. When you imagine that calm state, how does it feel? How are you feeling? Very much a therapist at that point, a therapist. Like a good mom. Okay, beautiful. What does it feel like in the body, though? Like, what does your body feel like? Loose jelly. Yeah, just kind of like soft, good. You know, what does your tongue feel like? Do you feel like relaxed? Does your jaw relax? So the important thing that we just did there, this is the cool thing. This wasn't going to be part of this, but I'm going to make it part of this anyways. So the cool thing about our brains is when we recall a scenario that we experienced, our body will, or our brain will recreate the same chemicals, therefore stimulating the same feelings that we had in that moment. This is why photo shoots that we do for our clients are so powerful, and we can encourage them to think about the day and use their photos to help, kind of stoke that fire a little bit to help them recreate the chemicals of that day. And, okay, good. So then you want to, the thing is, when you're having these stress responses, so for example, right before a binge, whatever you felt, don't go back into it, but that feeling that you had is not you today feeling that experience. That's probably a younger version of you that experienced something and is trying to get away from feeling that experience. So it's like, I don't like the way that I feel right now. Maybe you were humiliated. Maybe you felt abandoned. Maybe you felt unloved. Maybe you felt unseen or unheard. Maybe you felt insecure back in the day. And so in this moment, that is now your current self, that is little you coming to the surface to say, oh my God, I'm fucking scared. And so if we can be aware of what it feels like in our body right before we cross the threshold into binging, we can intervene and parent ourselves to say, hey, I notice your heart rate speeding up. I notice your breathing is getting heavier. I notice there's a little bit of tingling happening around your eyes, your lips, and the back of your head. Maybe we should go for a walk to like kind of move that through our bodies. What would feel good? Let's choose from our list of cup fillers to kind of reduce these feelings that we're having right now. So I can tell you that we are safe, that we are supported, that we are loved, that we are confident. Okay. So but you need to be aware of what that feels like. And the only way we can do that is by reflecting on how it feels when we were in that experience. So that's why building that context afterwards, after you go through an experience, is helpful, because it provides you information to build up to this, where you can then take control and be the parent in that situation. So then we want to create a preventative self-care plan, right? So once you know once you start to notice what triggers your binges, once you know what the correlations are, what you buy, when you buy it, what the experiences is, then you can start to kind of plan for it and put other things in place. So we're not taking anything out. We're not taking eating off the table. We're not taking shopping off the table. We're not taking anything away. Instead, we're just going to add new things in. And so what that can look like is having mantras to repeat when I can predict the feeling of emptiness. For example, I'm working on a course that prompted this conversation right now. Once I'm done that whole thing, recording it and sending it off, I know I'm going to feel depleted again. So I need to come up with a mantra that I can say to myself when my brain is like, You need to start working again. Oh my God, I'm afraid that you're never going to have another creative idea. What if nobody books you for another tutorial again? What if you don't end up speaking ever again? What if whatever my brain is trying to tell me? So I need to have a mantra to kind of be like, hey, buddy, it's okay. Let's go look at the history of, last year we got to work this amount of times. Look at the work I'm doing to make sure that I am doing this. Don't worry, we'll be okay. And I can kind of accommodate that feeling of emptiness and say, you know what, this feeling of emptiness is good. This makes room for more ideas, for newness, for possibility to happen. You need to percolate like a good pot of coffee, Terry. What are you doing? You can't just keep working. Right? I started doing self-portraits after my photo shoots. After photo shoots, not only would I ignore my body afterwards by not eating because just another photo, just another thing, because I need to people please, because if I don't people please, then nobody's going to like me and that's uncomfortable. And so I'm just going to do that. So I'd overwork to the point where as soon as I would get to eat, I would literally eat everything because I don't know when I'm going to see food again. I have recreated the exact same inconsistent eating routine that I had as a child on the farm. And so I've decided that I now pre-order my lunch to the studio so I know it's there when I'm done work, or I take food. And then while I'm waiting for that to happen, I do self-portraits after my photo shoots. This is a constant. Self-portraits fill me back up after I've given things away. It's a much more healthy way for me to do things. I get to be creative, and then my lunch arrives, and then all is well. Less chance of me binging when I get home. Taking time away from the world and being in nature once a month is something that I've been doing for the last 2 years, and it has drastically changed my mental health and therefore has mitigated my need to binge as often. I'm not saying I don't ever do it, because I still do sometimes, but it definitely isn't as often as I was. I'm definitely much more in a more critical headspace than I was when I was overworking myself and needing to be everything for everyone. Because I was fearing that if I said no, then new jobs wouldn't come along, right? Oh no, that might be my only opportunity. If I say no to that client, then I might never get another client. Your scarcity mindset, right? It was fueling literally every decision I was making. And today I just heard a TikTok that was like, don't make decisions. You can make decisions out of two things, love and fear. Never make a decision out of fear, because that's when you stay stuck. So try your best to make decisions out of love instead. And I was like, oh, that's cute. Okay. Do creative sessions once a week, and then fill my agitation with one of my cup fillers. So if I'm feeling that agitated, like I need to get on the computer, I need to shop for things, I need to buy something, I need to have it, I need it now, and all I can think about is this thing, I'm going to go for a walk outside. I'm just not even going to go near the computer. Right? I'm going to plan for it. I'm going to have a plan. Does that make sense? So using your little cup fillers, you can then create a system that works for you. And it's going to change every time. But again, we can't know what any of that's going to look like until you figure out the why behind the binge in the first place and noticing what those trends are. Okay? And last but not least, let's go through some final thoughts. Number 1, binging is usually a coping method put in place due to a belief. So changing your circumstances is not going to change your behavior. You're just going to shift it to something else. I thought once I gave up diet culture that I would no longer have to worry about my self-value. Well, funnily enough, I just shifted it to work. Now, instead of having a shitty relationship with my body, I have a shitty relationship with my value around productivity. Get excited. And so nothing really changed. I still binged because I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't think that I was valued enough. I didn't think I was seen enough. I didn't think all those things. And so we have to work on shifting our beliefs away from scarcity and towards the idea of abundance, reminding ourselves that there is no limit to what we can have. There's billionaires out there for a reason. You can have more than what you want, and rewrite your stories around the things that you've been taught. That scarcity is a whole other topic to work through. But it's really important for us to just acknowledge, like, who did I learn this from? Just like I do with body image. Who did I learn this from? Who taught me this about scarcity? Who taught me this mindset? Do I want to continue to believe it? Or can I start looking for evidence of abundance? Start tracking everything that comes to you instead of looking for the things that aren't coming to you. The biggest thing I always tell people is, like, if you're booking up, let's say, mini sessions and you have one person book, instead of bitching about the 14 that didn't book, focus on the one that did. Celebrate the one that did. That's one more person than you had, right? It's so important. But I think being in social media and in Facebook communities, especially if we're more inclined to compare ourselves to others, we are going to have those feelings of insecurity and inferiority a lot higher, which tells you part of your preventative self-care plan might be a digital detox once or twice a week. All right. It's really important for us to understand that this takes time. It is a process. Like I said, it's taken me I started working on this about 3 years ago, so 36. So it's taken me 36 years to develop and really dig in my feet around this idea of scarcity and develop these coping skills of binging. Yeah, not going to change all of that immediately in 3 years. It's going to take time to rewire the brain, but it can be done. It is a process. It's integral to have compassion for yourself as you get to know yourself more and more. Like I said, if you heard as I was going along, I was like, this is exciting. Like, we get to, like, learning about yourself can be a really exciting adventure, and it being able to explore and get curious with yourself, it takes the shame away from it and allows you to just be like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And allows you to feel more in control. It's putting the brake down against that gas pedal. And this is really important. There is nothing to be embarrassed about, and more people experience binge behavior than want to admit it. And to be honest, because of social media, I guarantee you that this is only going to increase for people. The fact that depression is on the rise, anxiety is on the rise, and feelings of inferiority and insecurity as a result of being on social media, more people are giving into it. And that's why social media is literally designed to influence binge behavior, right? The other thing I might recommend, just like some more critical things or logistical things, unfollow or hide ads for the places you normally shop, like where you would go to binge. I unfollow or hide ads for Shein. I hide because they're like prevalent all the time. Get off mailing newsletters for other companies. Like I had to get off the newsletter for Eloquy because they come up with stuff like every week, and I'm like, I need it to be super professional or whatever, right? So take logical steps like that as well to remove those things. While you're removing the triggers, you also, that's not really a trigger, that's just like an enabler. While you're removing the enablers, you also have to be working through the why is this happening in the first place. Understanding why we do the things can give us the education we need to make conscious and preventative decisions going forward. All right. So that is it, my friends. That was my fun little talk. Thank you to Keisha again for the suggestion on this topic. It was so good. And look at that. I nailed the 1.5 hour, which I was like, that should be enough time. Amazing. Do we have any questions about anything or anything I can help you with or anything you want to share in regards to binge behavior or scarcity mindset or anything like that? Anything at all? Yeah, this was really good. Thanks, guys. This was great. I'm going to use this talk again. I'll put this on my YouTube because I think it's a really beneficial one. Yeah. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to come back to just me now. Yay. Okay. Do we have any questions about anything or anything? Thanks. But yeah, I hope that was beneficial for you because it's not something you should have to move through on your own. Okay, I think that's the biggest thing. And again, thank you to Keisha for sharing her story so that other people can benefit from the same information. If you have any questions about this, of course, the comments will stay open. So feel free to respond if you watch this later or anything like that. Yeah, but hopefully this was good. This is fun for me too. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about me while I was going through it, as is everything. But yeah, you're not weird. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just the way we learn to do the things. And so now we get to learn a new way. And you can be in charge of the new way that you do the things. Get excited. And remember, it's not like a moral failing. I think that's the other thing that I would tell you. It's just fear. You're literally just you're trying to prevent your brain from being scared. It's not a moral failing. It's literally just you trying your best to stay safe in the only way that you learned how. And so we just need to let your brain and body know that maybe you are safe. Maybe you are in an okay situation. Maybe life is not as bad, and it doesn't have to fear about a lot of the things that it's currently fearing about. Yes, definitely not alone. This is something that a lot of people experience. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, with that, I will let you all go. Thank you for sticking in there. Again, Keisha, thank you for the suggestion. If anybody else has anything that they want me to talk about on similar types of topics, I'm more than happy to chat about that. All right. Perfect. I will talk to you later. Enjoy the rest of your week, my friends. Bye.